And welcome everybody to another edition of the Brody File. Look at this, we're in New York City. How swanky of us. The Big Apple, that's right, it's my hometown. I mean, I grew up like 3 miles from here north that way. Why are we in New York? Well, look, we are here to talk to some movers and some shakers, beginning with Sarah Palin, but also later in the show, Mark Halperin and John with their book Double Down. And we also have interviews with Mike Huckabee and Joe Scarborough. But first, the interview with Sarah Palin here in New York City. She's kicking off her book tour. It's a book all about Christmas. And we had a chance to sit down with her one-on-one right here in the Big Apple. You make a really compelling case for this idea that our culture is getting secularized like you wouldn't believe before. What is going on here? And tell me the heart here. In other words, what is your concern about all of this?
I am so concerned about expression of religious faith being marginalized, being kicked out of the public and private square today, because that leads to an erosion of America's wonderful foundation. Obviously, we were founded, as written in our Charters of Liberty and the documents that created America, we're founded on a Judeo-Christian faith that would allow forever the right to express our respect for faith in America. And when you see, say, an angry atheist armed with an attorney tell us that it's politically incorrect to express faith because some offense perhaps would be taken, I want to empower people and remind them that they have a constitutionally protected right to stand up and fight back that movement that would say it's politically incorrect to, for instance, keep Jesus as the reason for the season and keep Christ in Christmas.
Look, you don't pull any punches. What a shock in this book. When it comes to Jesus, you talk about him, you talk about God, Jesus right there, and you talk about how that name, that if it wasn't called Christmas, if it wasn't about Jesus, then it may be a whole different story. But that name seems to offend, and I'm curious about your views on that.
Yeah, that's a great point that you're bringing up, because that's exactly the point. Is people who would be offended by the holiday that we celebrate, the Prince of Peace, because it is called Christmas, is because the name Christ is in the title that they would be offended. So that tells you that this war on Christmas is really the tip of the spear when it comes to a greater battle that's brewing. And that battle that's brewing is those who would want to take God out of our society, out of our culture, which will lead to ruin, as history has proven. Any country, any government, society that has kicked God out of the public square completely, it leads to ruin. Why would we go down that path when we know what would happen?
You talk about fighting and boldness, and that what Christians can do, and maybe not even Christians, maybe some, just folks that believe faith is important.
Sure, just patriots, just
absolutely
people of any faith or no faith at all, just those who respect freedom that we have here in America.
Yeah.
That's who I'm talking about.
And what can folks like that, those people, do to they see the train leaving the station, whether it be gay marriage, whether it be just all sorts of secularization of the culture? What do they do?
Well, see, atheists have a right in America to stand up and express their views. Well, faith-filled people also need to be reminded they have the right also to have their voice heard. This book gives legal and cultural steps that can be taken, advice that can be accepted to have their voice heard, and not to feel intimidated by a minority of people who would want to take away our right to express our faith. Very important that we do that, because that inherent link between faith and freedom, it's fragile at this point in America.
You mentioned the 2008 election, and how did you have to get through some of that from a forgiveness and grace standpoint? Because that's scarring. That's stuff scarring.
it can be traumatic.
Sure.
Yeah, going through what you go through. I mean, on all the frivolous lawsuits that were filed against my family and me after I ran for vice president, even though we won all those lawsuits. Going through financial hardship because of that, going through the scrutiny of a daughter who was pregnant with the mainstream media, all of a sudden acting like Bristol was the only single mom in the world, and what a terrible thing it was, and what a terrible thing it was that she chose to keep her baby, and yet the decision that she made has been one of the best decisions in our family's life, and forever will be. So anyway, all these things that had happened at that time, in fact, and at the same time, our son going off to war, his first deployment in Iraq, just a lot of things that were going on. Sometimes I look back and I think, how did we stand through all that? And I know how we stood through that. It was Christ strengthening our spines and giving us the grace to get through it, and allowing circumstances around us, I think, that would lead us to be more sympathetic and understanding of what every other person on this earth goes through. Everybody has their challenges. Ours just happen to kind of play out on the front page of the National Enquirer sometimes. But everybody going through some hardship, less than ideal circumstances, choices that have to be made. I believe that we were allowed to be a part of a lot of circumstances that very quickly thrust us into a position of understanding what other people go through.
And God has your back through all of that.
God has our. There is no way I would be standing if it weren't for that faith that I had adopted as a kid, asking Christ into my life, putting my life in His hands, saying, God, you're my creator. I've got to believe that you know more about destiny than I do. So, heaven forbid I try to orchestrate it myself. Lord, send me, I'll go.
That is Sarah Palin here on the Brody File. Look, if you want more information on Sarah Palin's book tour, you can go to thebrodyfile.com and get all of that information. All right, when we come back, Mike Huckabee. He is a star, not just nationally for the GOP, but here even in New York, where he does his television talk show. We're going to talk with Mike Huckabee when the Brody File rolls on from the Big Apple.
Hi, my name is Breda. I'm just your typical 9-year-old. I love singing, dancing, reading, discovering the simple truth. My grandpa says you're never too young or old to learn the value of a dollar. He taught me the true value of this paper dollar. You see this little gold coin? It says $1 on it. But guess what? That was a long time ago. Today, this gold dollar is worth over 100 paper dollars. This paper dollar is now only worth 1 penny compared to America's former money, the gold dollar. My grandpa says the only money worth saving today is real money, gold or silver coins. He's pretty smart. How our paper dollars lost their value, he says. It's all explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. It's easy and fun to read. If you call the number on the screen, I will send you a copy totally free. Next time, I will explain the simple truth about money.
Help!
If an emergency happened right now, you can have help at the push of a button with Medical Alert.
Remember when I took that fall, Mary?
Oh, yes, that was terrible.
Yes, it was. Help! And I thought, what if you hadn't been there? I ordered my Medical Alert the next day.
I can't describe how safe I feel now with my Medical Alert. You didn't know I was wearing it, did you?
Medical Alert is easy to install, waterproof, and covers you inside your home and out.
It helps me feel safe from fires, break-ins.
And of course, a Medical Alert. And if you don't have a home phone, don't worry. They have that covered.
There's always help at the push of a button. Don't wait till you need it.
Get Medical Alert for less than $1 a day. There are no long-term contracts. Order now and get your second button free. Call for your free brochure.
For your free Medical Alert system with second button free, call 800-575-8507.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File here from New York City. All right, so We talked about Sarah Palin in the first block of the show. Now to Mike Huckabee. 4 blocks away from this spot, Mike Huckabee tapes his weekly television show. He's a Fox News celebrity and, of course, a former GOP presidential candidate. And I had a chance recently to talk to Huckabee about the state of the Republican Party. And believe it or not, folks, he says it is time for Republicans to get along and stop beating up on other more moderate Republicans. How do you stop the fracturing in the Republican Party? Is this an organic situation? It is what it is. It's going to happen. I liken it to an intervention in a way. You know, like the alcoholic and the family gets involved and says, "Hey, lay off the alcohol." Here it's like lay off the spending, lay off the debt, and the Tea Party's kind of come in and recalibrated that to a degree. I mean, where is this going to end with the Republican Party?
Maybe the entire party needs to go to the Betty Ford Clinic. Maybe that's the answer for all of this.
That probably would
But the
be.
Betty Ford Clinic may be for spendaholics. But I do think that there is a sense in which Republicans are fighting amongst themselves about mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the purest conservative of them all. That's ridiculous. Look, there's not a Republican in the House or Senate who is less conservative. And the fact is some may be more on certain issues, but take any of what some would call the lightest Republican, and they're a lot more conservative than the most conservative Democrat. So why would you target other Republicans? I mean, isn't the goal to get a majority in the Senate and boost the majority in the House and get a Republican president? How do we do that? By splitting ourselves 14 different ways over this thin of differences? Or is it to unite together and to say, look, we have some differences, but compared to those guys, we got no differences. Think about it in the Christian world. I don't observe Mass because I'm not a Catholic. But I'm telling you something, when Obamacare and the tenets of it attack Catholicism, it attacks me and my faith. And that's why a year ago, on this very stage of the Value Voters Summit, I said, we're all Catholics. And what I meant by that was, I have so much more in common with my Catholic brothers and sisters. In fact, there's not that much difference between me and them as there is between me and them and the secularists who believe that for any reason, at any time, under any circumstances, and paid for by me, a woman should be able to take the life of her unborn child. Now, what should I do? Fight with my Catholic brothers over doctrinal nuances? Or should I unite with them and fight what I believe to be the forces of true evil? So why do Republicans fight each other over the narrow and the small when they need to unite and fight united against that which is really big and threatening?
Interesting, but you would agree that the Tea Party, when they talk about politicians that have been in Washington too long and have been sipping the Potomac River too long, there is something to be said about institutionalism as well, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's
no, I
part of the
get that,
issue.
and I understand. I mean, I'm a term limit supporter. I think term limits are a good idea. But until we have them, even if we want to elect someone in place of, let's say, an institutionalist, that's fine. Take your best shot. But here's also what I would strongly commend. Tell me why your guy is a better choice. Tell me what's good about him. Don't tell me just how rhino or what a squish this other guy is, because that doesn't help us all. And if he ends up getting the nomination, you have given the Democrats the weapons that will be used against him to defeat him, and now we've lost the opportunity to take the Senate.
Mike Huckabee here on the Brody File. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk to Joe Scarborough. You've heard him before here on the Brody File. Well, we're going to go into the video vault as we head to 30 Rock when the Brody File continues.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
And welcome back, everybody, here to the Brody File from New York City. All right, behind me, Radio City Music Hall. Right there at Radio City is 30 Rock. You know the building, very famous. Inside that building is where Morning Joe is taped. And we've been here before to New York. We actually spoke to Morning Joe co-host, or really he is the host, but along with Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough and I had a chance to sit down and talk about the Republican Party and about his faith. It was a pretty fascinating conversation, so let's dive in, to the Brody File video vault for this instant classic. What do you make of people like Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, even Matt Drudge? I mean, you know, it just may not Drudge so much, but those other guys, the talk radio folks that have the ear of the heartland in this country. A lot of people in the heartland.
You know what, though? I mean, I've got to say, I'm friends with Rush.
Sure.
I don't know Matt, but nobody knows Matt. But I go to the Drudge Report every morning. It's just this habit I've been in since 1998.
Right.
But you know, a lot of these talk radio guys, they're copies. They're carbon copies of Rush. You know, Rush made a lot of money. They decided they were going to copy Rush. And most of these guys couldn't get elected dog catcher. They just couldn't. But they've got a really good, and this is important, and conservatives need to understand this. I don't knock them. They've got a great business model.
That is Joe Scarborough here on the Brody File. All right, when we come back from New York City, one-on-one with the Double Down authors. They're the authors of the hit HBO movie and book by the same name called Game Change. Now they're out with the sequel. Mark Halperin, John Heilman, here on the Brody File. Next.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions, just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card, just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File here in New York City. All right, remember we talked about, and we had a conversation with Sarah Palin earlier in the show. Well, about 10 blocks south of that, on 5th Avenue, we had a chance to speak to Mark Halperin and John Heilman. They are the authors of Double Down. It is the sequel to Game Change, a political nonfiction book where they basically recreate what happened in 2012. It is a fascinating look, a behind-the-scenes look at all of the cast of characters that went into that 2012 political soap opera. Here's some of that conversation. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
David, great to be here.
All right, the book obviously looks to be another success, huge success. Talk to me first as it relates to the difference between the first book and this book and what you found. John, why don't we start with you?
Well, you know, they're remarkably similar. You know, the approach that we took to the first book was, you know, let's not write a book about strategy and strategists and about polling and pollsters. Let's write a book about the high human drama of presidential politics and try to show what it's like for these high-achieving, highly ambitious people to compete in the most intense kind of competitive arena there is in America. And we wanted to focus on the emotion of it, the humor of it, the pressure that they're under, how it changes them, and how their ability to adapt to that environment allows them to either succeed or fail. We brought that same approach to this book with a lot of deep research. Last book we did 300 interviews with 200 and some people. This time we did 500 interviews with 400 and some people. And you know, the contours of the story are different, but our approach approach is almost entirely the same.
What about those that deep research that we hear so often about and all of the sources? I mean, everybody's trying to spin their way to a degree on this. I mean, you know that this is not your first rodeo. How do you deal with kind of the spin factor and try to decipher through that a little bit?
We're so careful in these books. We want to tell the story of what happened accurately as journalists, but in a compelling way. And so we try to weave together the best stories. We don't feel obligated to include anything unless we find it ourselves fascinating. We think people will find it fascinating. People can say what they want about the book, but it's accurate. It's a true depiction of the comedy, the humor, the drama, the twists and turns of a presidential campaign that was pretty darn exciting.
What are some of the interesting anecdotes that I mean, there's so many in this book, but what is like kind of give me a top couple on the list here, John. What's something that just you said, wow, I had no idea, or you didn't know the full story for sure?
Well, there's no question that for Mark and I both, I mean, one of the most dramatic scenes in the book and one of the most kind of extraordinary incidents that either one of us ever reported on is the thing that we write about President Obama and his kind of what he went through after the debate in Denver, where he stumbled, having a catastrophic performance failure that leads the top people on his team, David Plouffe, senior advisor in the White House, to say, if he gives this performance the same performance he gave on stage just now in this practice debate against John Kerry, and his team at the highest levels, feel as though they need to have what they called an intervention with him, where they got him in a room the next morning and said, Mr. President, something radically has to change here if we're going to prevail, if we're going to do what we have to do to win the election and win this debate. And the president offers this extraordinary hour-long monologue on the nature of politics, his relationship to politics, how he feels about the theatricality that he's being asked to indulge in, the absence of a robust agenda, like an existential crisis. Neither one of us ever come across anything like that, not in this election or really in almost any other election we've ever covered. It's kind of an amazing thing.
Interesting. Mark, I'm wondering real quick, do you subscribe to this theory that yes, you need your sources, but they, in a way, need you guys just as much?
Well, look, people want to tell this story. People are involved in presidential campaigns, whether it's candidates, their spouses, their kids, or the people involved at the highest and lowest levels of the campaigns. They're in something so dramatic, so emotionally compelling. What we try to do is to bring that alive. We try to take their best stories, weave them together, make sure they're accurate, and then let the story tell itself through big scenes, big dialogue, big drama, and occasionally humor. People want to be part of that. People want to be part of it to contribute. And I think a lot of readers want to read about it because we all live through these national elections. This is a chance to find out what actually happened, imbued with the kind of emotion and drama that is the stuff of real life.
So some of these candidates that are potentially going to run in 2016 will draw their own conclusions from reading this book, but I am curious as to what maybe some of that advice would be for it. Not your personal advice, obviously, but some of the lessons gleaned from this book that Scott Walker, that Rubio, that Christie can learn from this process.
Well, certainly, I think that there are two that just jump out bullet points. If you decide you want to run for president, or you should only run for president if you really want to run for president. And I think one of the things that bedeviled Mitt Romney throughout, and we show this in a variety of ways in this recounting of his story, the story of the Republican nomination, then the general election. One of the things that bedeviled Mitt Romney throughout was a sense of ambivalence about whether he should be running or not, and that translated later at moments of when he was under pressure in the Republican nomination fight from Rick Santorum. Later, when the 47% video came out, his ambivalence translated into passivity and not dealing with those challenges in the way that a lot of his supporters and a lot of conservatives would have thought that he might have done, not without the fire in the belly. And the second thing is, you can't really win a national election unless you can somehow fuse both the establishment wing of the Republican Party and the populist kind of Tea Party wing of the party. If you only have one, or in Mitt Romney's case, if you're really the candidate of neither, it's going to be a really hard thing for you to do to win a national election.
Let me ask you one last question. You guys are obviously great writers, and don't take this the wrong way, but you guys are great political geekheads.
There's only one way to take that.
That's right.
That's a huge compliment.
And yet, the HBO situation and just all of this, the accolades, and the book is such a financial bestseller. What has this been like in your lives, just to kind of go to quite frankly, a different place, a different stratosphere, really?
Journalism is going through a bit of a crisis. It has been for many years, and it's nice that we can work hard on something, feel good about what we do, have it represent what we think is the best of our careers and the best tradition of long-form journalism, and have it be something that people pay attention to. It is really gratifying.
Very nice. And come on, with the HBO movie potentially now coming up with Double Down, not potentially, will come up. Chris Christie, who's going to play Chris Christie? Don't you have some folks? Hillary, who's going to play all these characters?
Well, there's certain obvious candidates for the Christie for Chris Christie. John Goodman comes to mind. A lot of people have suggested that, and we'd be certainly happy with that. The big question, the big casting challenge is who's going to play David Brody, and we've suggested, naturally, that you should really play yourself.
Well, someone told me that Sam Alito might want to play me, or the cousin of Sam Alito. I kind of look like him.
Not bad, but we're holding out for you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Mark Halperin and John Heilman here on the Brody File. All right, when we come back, an oy vey moment of the week that has to do with the World Trade Center. You are not going to believe this one. Back in a moment.
Grace, music is unpredictable.
I know I have what it takes.
The Dove Foundation raves. Grace Unplugged is remarkable and inspiring. This is not about the music, it's about everything else that goes with it.
Dad, were you watching me?
A moving and meaningful film.
This book, his words shook me. It was like my whole world.
That parents and teens should see together, says Focus on the Family.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna drag her back home?
Yeah, I might. I think maybe you're fighting God. Just stop running.
Grace Unplugged, rated PG, now playing.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than BOSLEY. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose BOSLEY.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
Grace, music is unpredictable.
I know I have what it takes.
The Dove Foundation raves. Grace Unplugged is remarkable and inspiring. This is not about the music, it's about everything else that goes with it.
Dad, were you watching me?
A moving and meaningful film.
This book, his words shook me. It was like my whole world.
That parents and teens should see together, says Focus on the Family.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna drag her back home?
Yeah, I might. I think maybe you're fighting God. Just stop running.
Grace Unplugged, rated PG, now playing.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File here from New York City, the Big Apple. It is my hometown. Hooray, balloons. Where are the balloons? No balloons. All right, but we do have, instead of balloons, we have something even better. It's the oy vey moment of the week. Here we are in New York City. It's beautiful. Now, way down south of here in Manhattan, at the lower end of Manhattan, we all know that the Twin Towers, of course, used to be there, the World Trade Center from 2001. Well, get this. 2 teenagers from Britain decided to dress up at Halloween as, get ready for it, the Twin Towers. That's right. One was the South Tower, one was the North Tower. Poor taste. Are you kidding me? And to make it even worse, their costumes were filled with flames and debris and people jumping out of the towers. This is a serious oy vey moment of the week. Folks, are you kidding me? That is not only disrespectful, but quite frankly, just nauseous to us here at the Brody File. They got a lot of flack for it. They did apologize, but still, okay, we give you grace, we're evangelical, we hear your apology, but please never, ever again. That does it from here in New York City. Until next time, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you next week back in the stuffy old studio.